Yeah, I'm Jack DeShazer, and this is my good friend Bonnie, and she's agreed to read my stories. I wrote a book called "The Land Beyond All Roads." Uh, it's about the adventures that I had with horses and mules, and in the backcountry. And there's even a really good story about a dog. But probably the best thing I can do to introduce you to the book is just read the foreword and the preface. But to start with, the dedication. I'm dedicating this book to all the horses and mules that have made it possible for me to experience the romance of the backcountry over the last 40 years. And forward uh, is that I think tells you a lot about what the book is, like they're supposed to. But anyway, my purpose in writing this book was to write these stories so you, the reader, can envision yourself with me at times of the event. So hopefully you can enjoy some of the same emotions that I did. Anyone that is familiar with the use of horses and mules in the backcountry, you will find kindred spirit with when reading these stories. To those who have never had the opportunity to experience the romance that can only happen when you're on a horse in in the land beyond all roads. Prepare yourself for a grand adventure. Some authors will write about the sun coming up and a squirrel crossing a log. If you're like me, even if these stories are well written, you get bored trying to read them. Over the last 40 years, I've made hundreds of pack trips into the backcountry. For me, they were all enjoyable, but I know less than 1% were worth sharing. This book covers a large spectrum of interest and is only about events that are exciting and extraordinary. The words in this book do not come from a great literary mind, as you would probably already guessed. Instead, they come from a place deep down in my heart that loves wild country. You will not be reading about hunting, but the adventures that happen when hunting. If you give this book a chance, you'll find that it has something that should interest almost everyone. It is not like anything else you've ever read. One reason is because, unlike other books about the outdoors adventure, the author is not trying to impress anyone with his accomplishments. In fact, it's more about foolish mistakes that would embarrass any of us. Embarrassing as these calamities were, I knew they were too funny or too emotional not to be told. Besides, they are what make this book real. Other things that this book are that they have interesting characters. One being a very special lady who came to be an accomplished hunter. When reading Jennifer's wilderness experience, you will learn that she is not only fearless, but also tougher than most. When people are in the wild country, 30 miles or more away from any civilization, it always has an influence on them. It frightens more people than you might think. I've guided grown men, even though they made their living cutting timber in the forests, still couldn't handle being deep into the wilderness. Among other things, they became terrified if left alone. I also discovered it was a surprising number of hunters have issues being miles away from any civilization. These people have told me that their fear is because they have learned how easy it is to get hurt in the woods and how dangerous the weather can be in high country. But I'm mystified why this doesn't just give them respect for backcountry instead of being afraid of it. I discovered that they're not spending any time in the forest because they love it. It is because they're making a living there or they like outdoor activities like fishing and hunting. I found it interesting that there's always one thing these people have in common. They don't have a connection and never wanted a connection with nature. But most people that spend time in the wilderness do have a connection and grow deeper feelings and appreciation for a planet and everything that lives on it. For years, this has been referred to as getting closer to nature. But for others, it's much more than that. They don't just become closer to nature, they become part of nature. Their senses come to life just like a wild animal is trying to survive in an environment that is unforgiving. They hear, smell, see things that they would never have paid any attention to before. The same lake, river, mountain peak, waterfall, grassy meadow becomes more majestic. They feel an affection and kinship for this wild country that would never have happened if they were only looking at it out the window of a car. I call this romancing the backcountry. This may sound strange to some, but if one has a deep emotional feeling for wild country, then the phrase romancing the backcountry is not out of context. There are more people that have had a love affair with the backcountry than you might think. For you ladies that are romantics, don't despair. This book does have some real romance, heartbreaking romance. Now, guys, don't worry, it's not overdone. But how could any man who is trying to write an honest book about his last 40 years not say something about romance? I'm inviting you to come with me to the land beyond all roads. Don't be afraid. I know you will enjoy the ride. It will not only make you smile, but if you're not careful, it could cause your eyes to water, like only true events can. You will also learn something about how to train and use horses and mules in the backcountry and what mistakes not to make. For others, you will learn what backcountry hunting is really like and that wild country makes the best adventures. But what I'm hoping for most of all is that these stories will inspire you to experience some of the romance of the land beyond all roads.
I wanted to point out when you were reading the beginning there and how terrified some people are when they get into the back country. You know, I just, when the first time we went with you and the kids and we get there and I get in my tent and that feeling just came over me. I did not expect it because I love being back there. But that night I'm like laying there and I'm like, what did I just do with my kids? But the next morning it was just so beautiful and it passed real quickly, but it was a bit of surprise because it's true that you can get a little bit fearful back there, but but the romance of it is so worth it.
Well, you're a long ways from any help if anything goes wrong. And back then, I mean, we didn't have a connection with satellites, but
yeah. That's the romance of it.
That's part of it.
I like being back there with no connection. I feel extremely fortunate for the passion I've always had for wild country and being lucky enough to spend so much time in the land beyond all roads. Other than my children, it's brought me more pleasure than any other part of my life. Writing this book has taken several years, and it is also the hardest thing I've ever done. I did it because I had so many adventures worth sharing, and I wanted people that weren't as fortunate as me to understand why our forefathers had the foresight to make wilderness areas. I know it's not possible for everyone, but I want more people to be able to enjoy these wilderness areas. I also know reading about wild country isn't as exciting as being there, but if you are a lady or a guy with a little imagination, these stories can make it seem like you too are living the adventure.
So, thank you for reading that. One thing that I would like to point out is that I have dyslexia, so it's really difficult, for me to write. It's not like I'm some great author or something like that, but anyway, it took me years to write this book. Almost 4. And the reason that I was able to keep going, even though it was difficult and took me a lot of time, was I was writing it for Jennifer, and I wanted everybody to know what a classy lady she was. And on the back cover, I'll read that to you. This is, you see the picture. That's when we're over on the east side of the Continental Divide, out of Augusta, going into the Chinese Wall. And that was this. Has that packstring in the Sun River, which is an amazing fishery. But this is Jennifer stopping to let her thirsty packstring drink on the way back from the Chinese Wall in the Bob Marshall Wilderness. She is riding Diesel, a half perch-on cross, which is an incredible mountain horse. If you read this book, you will get to know Jennifer and Diesel. You will also find out what I did after I rode hundreds of backcountry trails with them. They are both amazing. And Diesel, I I bought him, because I was out pheasant hunting and on a friend's property. He had sections of ground, and he asked me to check on his horses. He hadn't seen them for weeks, and to make sure they were all right. But anyway, I noticed this one horse that was just a standout. He ran faster than the other horses, and yet he was somewhat friendly. He'd never been touched by people. But I'd went completely to mules. I hadn't bought a horse for years, but I decided that I would like that horse, and he was half perch-on and half thoroughbred. But anyway, I bought the horse for Jennifer and broke her for him. And I don't know if the camera will show it, but I have a scar that's the footprint of that horse. When I was breaking him into round pen, he didn't want to run in circles for whatever reason. And I wasn't smart enough to know not to put that enough, too much pressure on him. But anyway, he turned and kicked me right there. Split my nose open. You could see the cartilage in my nose. Blood was running all over. Broke my jaw. Broke a couple teeth out. But anyway, I got up off my knees, and I didn't want him ever to kick anybody again. And I had a lead rope with me, so I put enough pressure on him that he actually climbed out of that round pen. But he never ever kicked anybody again, and turned out to be the most fantastic mountain horse that I've ever been around. And Jennifer has him today. You might find it interesting that how tough this lady is right here. How many 100-mile races have you ran?
Well, I started 4 and finished 2. And
Yeah.
my daughter and I are planning on another one.
And you won one.
Yeah, the first one.
Yeah. And you were, if I remember right, you were the only one that finished.
Yeah, there was 4 of us registered, and my mare and I, Luna, were the only ones that finished that day.
Partly because of the bad weather, I understand.
Yeah,
Yeah. Anyway, to run a horse 100 miles, you got to be tougher than me.
I know about that.
And the other thing that you might find interesting is that how she met her husband. She used to live up in the West Kootenai. I actually sold quite a bit of real estate up there back in the day, so I'm real familiar with the area, and actually knew some of the people that she did. And I think we figured out that I at one time sold the house that your friends or you lived in.
I think so.
Yeah, on Young Creek there. But anyway, her husband, that was an Amish community, and that moved in up there, and the DeShazer homestead, where my grandparents were born, wasn't very far from there. So I was real familiar with it, like I said. But anyway, her husband was raised Amish, and because she fell in love with him, she joined the Amish church so she could get married to him. And what you might think, they're both very good people. I find myself at times looking over their head to make sure I'm not seeing a halo. But anyway, she's real, and a very nice person. And you have 6 children?
Yes, 3 girls and 3 boys.
Yeah. And you spend a lot of time now endurance racing now that the kids are older.
Yep. Yeah, I didn't start until my youngest was 5.
Your last race, I think you won your last race, didn't you?
Almost the second to the last. The last one I rode slower to help a young girl get her first completion.
But you beat that Dennis guy that you've been trying to beat. He beats everybody forever. I don't know how you managed.
That was a tough day. Yeah, it was all the horse.
Yeah, right. But anyway, she took me in and taught me what I needed to know to have a good time endurance racing, and I've always appreciated that.
Do you remember our last ride together? Do you want to talk about that?
Why don't you tell people about it? I'll never forget it because, again, it's my last ride. It was the last ride together. It would be my last ride.
Jack always wanted to win a ride. He'd win a race, of course. But it's really hard sometimes following the ribbons.
I kept getting lost. My horse would have won more than one race that I messed up on.
But
it's not as easy as you might think because you're concentrating on other things. But the other thing is you got to use the GPS well. But they don't. The people putting on the races, they try to do a good job of ribboning, but
sometimes the ribbons get sabotaged and stuff, and so
you end up going 2 or 3 miles the wrong way. In the race I was with her last, I can remember 3 or 4 times I would have got lost then if you hadn't have said something. Yeah, you don't really get lost. You just take the wrong trail for a while.
So you get off course, so then you're going extra miles and losing time. But the first ride I ever did in endurance was in Priest River. And so that was the last ride, same place that you and I went. And my husband and my son and Jack and I went with our horses Maverick and Legend. And I called Jack and said, I'm going to go do this ride. You're going to come with me and we're going to win it. So that's what happened. I forget exactly all the numbers, but basically we finished about 45 minutes ahead of the third person. And Maverick and Jack, there's a prize called Best in Class, Best Condition. So they judge how much your horse's weight is carrying and stuff like that. It's a number system. And so Jack and his horse Maverick got the best in condition of the day and also the most points over the last 7 years of any horse that did that ride.
We blew away any competition. Usually when you finish, it's just minutes between you and sometimes seconds. So we were, how many minutes? 45 minutes?
I think it was 45 minutes.
Yeah. And and I remember this too, it was a track record.
Was it?
Yeah.
In the speed that we did.
The speed.
It was, we did the 25 miles.
Yeah, faster than anybody else ever had.
Yeah, but back to your book here, I just wanted to say that you offered to take me and my husband family back into the backcountry, and I was like, oh, that's nice. And one day I just sat there and I said, it just dawned on me what you were offering. I mean, I had to sleep on it, and then I said to my husband Cornelius, and I says, Cornel, Jack's offering this. Boy, I better take him up on it. This is a chance of a lifetime. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, well, we had a real interesting trip, and again, I'm not an author, but I can write about what happened, and I've started writing that story, and it's a good one. And what goes on is, when you're making the trip, you think it's extraordinary and it's really amazing and all this thing, if you love the backcountry anyway. But most of the time, like 90% or greater, the story really isn't worth sharing with anybody else because it wasn't all that interesting unless you were there. This is interesting even if you're not there. Just like every story in this book. You'll be surprised to find out how amazing some of the things were that happened, or how different or unexpected. And it'll make you laugh because a lot of the things that happened were, you would think that somebody wouldn't even tell anybody because it'd be so embarrassing. But I was really honest with the whole book, and what it is basically is, it's intertwined with some really good backcountry stories, but it's a wilderness romance, is what it is.
Mark your calendars for Tuesday, January 13th, 2026 at 3 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, when Chapter 1, The Nightmare, will be released. Look forward to seeing you then.